So let me introduce our speaker, Mary Sanders. Dr. Mary was diagnosed as being hearing impaired at the age of 3, but she was aware of feeling / sensing, feeling and sensing others early on in her life. Her innate skills were desensitized during her childhood. However, during her chiropractic training in 1991, she was reconnected with the energetic properties of the human body. She was in private practice in Colorado Springs, Colorado, for 22 years prior to moving to Vietnam. She completed yoga teacher's training in Bali, after which her curiosity to better understand the power of the brain led her to study positive psychology, neuroplasticity, meditation, and mindfulness. She applied those skills in South America in the educational arena for 5 years via a nonprofit called Aviva Education. She completed her Master's of Intuition Medicine at the Academy of Intuitive Medicine in Sausalito, California. It's a pretty place to study. And this evening she's going to be presenting on the chakras, and eager to hear what you have to say about them. So please say hello to Mary Sanders. Hi, Mary.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Mary, would you prefer that people wait till the end for questions, or do you like to have it more interactive? What is your preference?
You know, I can go with the flow either way, but quite honestly, I do leave some time in between each of the chakras to open it up for group discussion.
Oh, good. Okay,
yeah,
great.
So that I know that we're working with a really experienced group tonight. So I'm looking forward to learning from you and, hearing some of your experiences that they apply to your modalities as well.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Okay, so you'll let us know when you're ready for questions. And in the meantime, let's all make sure that we're on mute so that we don't have any extraneous sounds going on. Okay. And all right, Mary, please feel free to start.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, Gloria, thank you so much for allowing this opportunity to come forth tonight. All that Caritas stands for in the evolution of consciousness. I have a tremendous amount of gratitude for the organization and for you personally in holding a container, a safe environment in which individuals can explore their own evolution as far as consciousness and collective consciousness as well. So thank you for that. That's the first thing that I want to say. And then more importantly, with the participants, I applaud you in that showing up tonight. I know that it might be a snowy night in Colorado and in a wintry storm environment, and you're cozy in your home, but more than anything, your curiosity allowed you to show up tonight or watch you here tonight. So I am honored to share the information that I have learned through my teachers, which I have a tremendous amount of gratitude as they created the understanding, conceptualizing this, but more importantly, my various teachers throughout the years have allowed me to experientially embody these principles, which is the greatest learning that one can have for oneself. So that's my wish for you tonight, in that we get an opportunity to look inward within ourselves for your opportunities for healing, And as Gloria mentioned, the organic flow of tonight, if you have questions, insights, thoughts that you want to share, please, by all means, speak up. So I'd like to share my screen and talk a little bit about what we can expect from this evening. We have about 2 hours together, which I'm really excited about. I put together a little time frame as to what we can expect during the time that we spend together. And I thought that we would just spend a few minutes grounding as a group, just to synchronize and entrain our energy with Mother Earth, and to kind of let go of our week or our day, and just to be more present for tonight. And then I'll spend some time defining what chakras are. And I acknowledge that all of you come to this meeting tonight with a baseline, more than a baseline understanding of what chakras are. I invite you to listen with an open mind and to be able to assimilate and perhaps expand your belief system as to what chakras are and how they can contribute to your overall health. We'll talk a little bit about chakra anatomy. And in this section, I have correlated a lot of information from various different instructors to piece together something that conceptually makes sense as the chakra system fits within the auric system, as it fits within the quantum field. So we'll be spending about 20 minutes talking about that. And then we'll break down each chakra individually, talk about the primary functions, talk about the associated anatomy, the neurological, the endocrine system, and how it relates to the emotional components of those energy centers as well. We'll take a brief break after we get done with the solar plexus, just to get up, use the bathroom, shake our, move our legs, and then I've got a brief exercise to stimulate the fourth chakra, which we'll start with when we come back from break. And then at the end, we'll open it up for more questions and answers. So I'm looking forward to having a very interactive time with you all. So let me see here. Let's just start with, I'm going to go back to the previous slide, and we're just going to take a moment to ground, if everybody is willing to find a comfortable position, for about 5 minutes or so, as we silence our mind and become more present. I invite you to find yourself in a comfortable seated position, preferably with your feet and your soles directly on the floor beneath you. If you have glasses on, I invite you to remove those, as we don't need our external ocular skills. This is a time to reflect inward. And let's just settle in by starting with taking a nice long inhalation through the nose, and then followed by an audible exhale, releasing any stagnant energy out of our lungs as we exhale. Another nice deep inhale, followed by an audible exhale. One more inhale. Begin to bring your awareness to your chest. Just pay attention to your breathing and set the intention to slow down your body. Take a moment just to run through your day or perhaps your week, and recollect and gather any of your essence that you may have left lingering in thoughts, conversations, words that were spoken, unspoken, correspondence in person, email, news correspondence, social media. And just reclaim any and all energy that you may have left lingering out, and bring it back in to the auric system. Begin to notice the relaxation of the cranium, the head, the face, releasing any tension within the jaws, relaxing through the upper shoulders, expanding through your chest, releasing any tension in the upper abdomen, allowing your pelvis to open and relax. Follow the energy all the way down to the thighs, knees, legs, ankles, and feet. Set the intention to open your feet chakras and your hand chakras 100%. And begin to connect into that slow, rhythmic impulse of Mother Earth and Gaia. Begin to notice the subtleties of the energy beginning to flow up through the feet, in through the hands. And just silently observe the energy as it moves up through the legs, knees, and pelvis. Allow the earth energy to rise up through your torso. Set the intention to activate the individual energy centers, starting in the pelvis, activating the first chakra. And just observe what's happening within your first chakra. Does it feel like it's open, closed, spinning, active, congested, bright, murky? No judgment. Allow your awareness to move up into the second chakra. Still in the pelvic bowl underneath the belly button. Breathing into this space and just observe. Listen to what the body is communicating to you as you sense and feel. Allow the earth energy to come up above the waist, underneath the ribs, into the solar plexus. Allow space for the softness of your belly. And observe the state of your third chakra. What information can you gather? What's your body sharing with you? Any tightness, any tension? Is it well defined? Does it feel bloated, inflated, inflamed, clear, brilliant, powerful? Allow the earth energy to rise into your chest, into the heart space. This area of transition from the physical to the spiritual. Set the intention to expand and to feel. And notice how the energy moves. It's moving freely, if there's any restrictions, adhesions. any protection, overexpansion. Allow the energy to move up into the neck, into the fifth chakra. Relaxing through your jaws. Notice the space all around the neck. Does the energy flow freely? Do you notice any imbalances, left side versus left side, back side? From here, just allow the earth energy to flow naturally out through the fifth, out to the shoulders, down the arms, through the elbows, into the forearms and wrist and hands. And as your hand chakras are open 100%, allowing the earth energy to flow freely from the hand chakras all the way out into the auric field. Begin to feel the density and the saturation of the auric field with earth energy. Notice the comfort, the temperature, the weight. Allow the energy to flow up into the head space, to the base of the cranium, to the top of the head. And as the energy flows out through the seventh, just imagine that the earth energy fountains like water. The water spills over like a fountain into the auric field. And as the earth energy returns back down, surrounding you 360, through the floor in which you sit, the foundations of the home in which you sit within, all the way back down into the nutrient soil, being fully embraced by Mother Earth. I invite you to gently open your eyes. How's everyone doing? Good? Now that I put my glasses back on, I can see you again. Okay. I started using the word chakras. What are chakras? I'm assuming everyone here is familiar with the Sanskrit meaning of what a chakra is. It's just basically a wheel, in a wheel of energy or a vortex that is found physically on the body as it transfers information from our environment into our physical body. I know that as you read through this diagram, most of this will be familiar with you already. However, I would like to present some ideas as we move through tonight's lecture about some ideas about how to creatively view chakras as individual levels of consciousness. So each chakra emanates a different frequency. And with that frequency, information is carried. The information that you receive from the environment, the information that is stored within, the information that transmits the life force energy in the exchange with our environment. Each chakra also has its own individual emissions of light, and those are just photons of color. So as you think about the various different rainbow colored of spectrum coming from the energy centers, know that that is generated by just an emission of light. Within each chakra system, there is an associated endocrine gland that has its own unique hormonal response in its own chemistry. And with each endocrine system comes its own nerve plexus. A plexus is essentially a highway of nerves that sends the information from an organ through the peripheral nervous system, through the spinal cord, up to the brain. And then the brain assimilates the information and carries it back down through the spinal cord, through the central nervous system, and back out to the body in the peripheral nervous system. So each chakra, each level of consciousness will have its own bundle of nerves. And the bundle of nerves, in many respects, a lot of information happens in that conglomeration, in that highway. So it's a fascinating process to look at the unified field of the chakra system and how it is expressed out through the auric system. When the chakras are activated, clearly there are going to be hormones that are released, and there's going to be tissues that are affected, and chemical change, and then the cells have to respond. And within the cells of our organism, within all organisms really, is an imprint of karmic memories, of hereditary memories, of universal memories. So the chakras activated, the cells get triggered, and the memories become alive, and it emits energy and elicits a response. And the response typically is going to be in the form of an emotion. So those are some creative ways to look at kind of like the neuroemotional response that happens within a chakra system. The beauty of this chakra system is that it autonomically regulates itself, or it, according to which environment that you are in, or it can self-regulate with intention. So essentially, your energy follows thought. And if your intention is to calibrate to either expand or open a chakra, or to narrow or to close a chakra, that chakra will respond with that intention. I find this whole process to be so beautifully intertwined, interconnected with all that is. Obviously, all that is within consciousness. As we move forward, I guess I should ask, does anyone have any questions about the ideas that I just presented? And I will elaborate more on those concepts as we move through our time together. But does anybody have any, questions they just have to blurt out right now?
I have a quick question. On your last point that you have regulates automatically, can self-regulate with intention, is this related just to with self-intention, or others can also have that particular intention on other people's chakras?
You're asking a beautiful question, and I will say that indirectly others can affect us. You can affect other people's chakras, especially those that you are in close, intimate relations with. There can be cords that can happen. There can be energy that can be exchanged, obviously. But you're in your own container, you should have the right as to who you really want to invite in to monitor or to regulate your endocrine system. It's for you to regulate. That's a great question. Does anybody else have questions? Okay, we're going to move forward, and we're going to talk about the chakra anatomy in the various locations. I put up here to give credit to Dr. Sue Morter and her book called Energy Codes. I like these two diagrams for a couple of different reasons. The one on the left, the human body, looking at the image front to back, shows the areas of the various energy systems in how it is surrounded by the auric system, which is connected into the universal field. And that's the image on the left. And the image on the right shows the quantum field that surrounds us, which is kind of like in the shape of a donut with a hollow vertical current that comes up through the center. And when we talk about these energy centers as being electromagnetically charged, you will then start to appreciate how that can be pulled out of a chakra system and into the quantum field to surround us in this beautiful toric field that surrounds all of us. And then how to look at the toric field that comes out from the heart and how it connects with the quantum field as well. So there's a lot of polarity, electromagnetic essence, a lot of circuitry that comes into play when you start talking about the chakra system. I will say that not too long in the distant past, I used to think of blocks within the chakra system to hold like physical mass. I was under the impression that they were like it was a density, like it was a glob of something. And the more that I work with patients and the more that I see it in others, when a chakra is not fully alive or aligned or activated, that if there is some discordant energy, it is just that the blueprint of the energy exists within those chakras. It just hasn't been electromagnetically activated. So the wiring is there, the circuitry is there for all people, for all living things. It's just a matter of firing them up so that we can be more online or electromagnetically charged. When I look at I'm going to be using some homemade props to further explain the chakra systems, and I wish that I could take credit for this. This was first initially shown to me by one of my instructors at the academy, Dr. Francesca McCartney. And I'm going to be using some props as visual aids, and these all come from my kitchen, so bear with me here. We talk about the vertical current, that central channel that opens us up from Mother Earth all the way out to the quantum field surrounding us and through the auric system. And to represent the vertical power current, I have the inside of a paper towel. The chakra system is designed, each one is designed like a funnel. And the funnel, the insert, the seed goes directly into and connects with the vertical power current. Because it is electromagnetically connected into the quantum field, there's going to be a spin within each chakra. And earlier I mentioned that that I was going to suggest that we look at the levels of the chakras as being individual levels of consciousness. And with that insinuates that the lower chakras are at a lower level of consciousness and that the upper chakras are at a higher level of consciousness. And in some of the research that I've gathered, some of the older texts that I've been researching, talk about the energy and the force as it comes through the chakra. There's a circular fashion and a front to back fashion. So it's not just linear. But within each chakra, there are individual vortices, additional vortices. And if we add more vortices, the energy becomes synergistic, which means that the energy is greater than the summation of each of these vortices together. So if I'm talking about the first chakra, it's going to be, the size of the chakra will be approximately 3 inches in diameter, 1 inch away from your physical body. And the first chakra will have 4 of these individual vortices within the chakra. So that sets the level of the frequency and the level of the consciousness. If you move further up into the second, then you're going to have 6 of these individual funnels within one funnel. If you move up to the third chakra, you're going to have 10. And it just goes up exponentially, exponentially, exponentially until you get to the 7th chakra, coming straight out of with the highest frequency, connecting you into the highest level of consciousness. So that's a way of looking at the levels of consciousness as they move up through the body. Another thing, I want to talk about the specific locations. We talk about the first and the second chakra being below the belly button. And then the third chakra is right below the rib cage or the tip of the xiphoid, which is essentially your sternum or your breastbone. And then the fourth is in the middle of the sternum. The fifth coming in alignment right about here, right over the thyroid in front of the lower cervical vertebrae, C5 and 6. And then the sixth chakra is located in the forehead. And then the seventh chakra is located in the midline of the cranium, about the same level of the ear if you take it all the way on up. And so we talked about, I mean, this is kind of a big surface area when you think about it. So if you're looking at, 3 inches in diameter, about an inch away from the body, that's a pretty big surface. And I'm talking about in a fully exposed diameter, that's how big a chakra can potentially get. However, what's interesting, here comes my other, we were talking earlier about, this is a vegetable steamer for those of you. If you look at it, it's almost, you can see that there is an aperture, like a camera aperture. So you can, with intention, depending upon your environment, depending upon what healings that you're doing, you can set the intention of your various different chakras for receiving additional information. So, for example, when I walk in the forest, when I'm connecting with Mother Earth and I really, really want to ground, I open up my first chakra as wide as I possibly can because I want to receive all that she has to emit. If I am presenting in front of a group and I want to communicate clearly, I'm opening my 5th chakra as wide as I can. If I'm sitting in silence or I'm in a silent retreat, I'm going to close down my 5th chakra. Or if I'm in an environment and I want to get a intuitive hit or a psychic read to enhance my seeing or my clairvoyance, then I'm going to set the intention to expand through the 6th chakra. The same is true if you're sitting across the table at dinner with somebody that perhaps has become very opinionated and somebody that you're not necessarily wanting to absorb some of the negativity. You may want to dial down your 2nd chakra. There are reasons and circumstances within your environment in which you would want to intentionally calibrate your chakras as well. So hopefully that makes sense as well. So one last thing before I open it up to questions is that because there is a polarity all around us, and because there is this quantum field, this electromagnetic essence, and as it penetrates us, it creates spins and directions. And many times people say, well, how do you know the health of your chakra? Do you put a pendulum on top of it and watch the pendulum how do you set the intention for it to be spinning accordingly with the energy in its environment? And the way that I explain that is, if you're looking, if you are yourself, I mean, obviously, if you have the chakra coming out of the heart and you're thinking about the spin or the direction, you just simply take your right hand, and this is again if you're in the northern hemisphere, but you would take your right hand and you essentially would curl your fingers towards your palm, take your thumb, put it in the direction of the actual chakra. The way that the fingers curl into the palm is essentially the direction of the spin as it relates to polarity. And a lot can happen within the polarity within a system, but as it relates to a functional polarity. So it's going to be like this. So your right hand, thumbs out, put your thumb into the chakra, curl your hand, and that's the direction that you're looking at. All the way up into the seventh, same concept. Okay, that was a lot of information just about the anatomy and location. So anybody have questions there?
I have one question, Mary.
Yes, shoot.
Can you hear? Yeah, are we going to be able to have the slides? Like, is that going to be, that might be, have a question for Gloria. Are we going to have the slides like on the Caritas Center website or something? I mean, they're so interesting.
They'll be on the recording. We're
on the record. Oh, okay, a recording. Okay. So if you signed up, you get the recording. Okay, thank you.
I have a question about what you mentioned about vortices inside of the chakras. Is that the same as what I've heard it being referred as petals?
As petals? I guess
Yeah.
you could look at, are you talking about from like the Buddha's perspective of the petals of the lotus?
Yeah, so
yeah,
like,
yes, I see the similarity of what you're saying. So like you see the 1,000 petals in which Buddha sits upon, and they represent the vortices, the 900 some odd vortices that are within the top chakra as it relates to higher consciousness.
So those are just different words to represent the same system within each chakra. Okay.
Yes. And Joe, I like that you're assimilating the information with your lens, the information that you have, and incorporating some truths or some common denominators, regardless what modalities, what religions, what belief systems. There's some common under themes to it. But yes, I agree with you. I would say yes.
I guess I've seen her question. It seems like a really good question, because I've wondered this too, where in the Vedic system, and you can see their chakra charts, and I've heard the petals are supposed to point upwards like a flower. Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. So there's like 2 petals on, or 4 petals on the root chakra, 6 on the heart, 2 on the third eye. And so it's not just up here, and that they go open upwards. And yet most Western stuff, including Barbara Brennan and, I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, a lot of other people do see it quite differently. And I just think that's interesting that there's such a variety of the way people look at them.
The interpretation, you're correct. It's Deb, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Deb, you're correct. There are so many, of all the texts that I pulled for research, there's differences in every single text. I'm going to be the first one to say that. And so when I'm correlating all this information, I'm looking for what the underlying themes are. I can't say if the petals go, I would agree with you that the petals go up in the 7th, but I see the petals and in the vortices as they connect now more within the quantum field that surrounds us, because there's so much electromagnetic essence that science can see. So I think that before the electron microscope, I think that in the Vedic history, they were using clairvoyantly the symbols that they received and trying to relate it to the best of their ability.
That
So
is so cool.
Oh, so you've seen some electron microscope diagrams of the chakras?
No, ma'am. No, that's not. I wish.
Oh, yeah, same.
Yeah, I wish. No.
I missed that one.
You know, though, just last night I was listening to a publication from Greg Braden, and he and Lynn McTaggart and Bruce Lipton are putting together a series about technology and consciousness. And something that Greg said last night, which I thought was absolutely fascinating, is that within the medical research in the last couple of years, they are, through imaging, they are able to look at bundles of nerves that regulate consciousness. And so they talk about, the bundle of nerves that supplies the brain. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about the 6th and 7th chakra. But I mean, what an evolution of science to bridge, philosophy and religion and science all together to look at consciousness in a new way. Blows my mind. Blows my mind.
I have a question.
Yes, Shirley.
I have never heard about the different vortices within the chakras. And I was wondering if when you talk about a chakra being shut down, could separate vortices within the chakra then be shut down for some reason or another?
According to Barbara Brennan, yes. But the wiring is all there. So it's just whether or not you allow the circuitry to fire or for the energy to flow through. So it's not as though somebody is void of anything. It's just not active. These are great questions. And Gloria told me I was going to be working with an experienced group. So this makes me happy.
I have one
Any
more
other
question. Yeah.
Yeah, Joe.
I'm fascinated with this concept of different parts of our body being more evolved than others, right? And you talked about the energy, the chakras as energetic wheels, and how each of them are individual consciousness, right? And I'm thinking about how science now is also thinking about our cells as also having some kind of level of individual consciousness when we're thinking about them reproducing and several different processes in the intracellular level. And I just found it super interesting to hear it from, like, thinking about it energetically as well. But one question that I have is that whenever, like, as we're putting this standards of like less evolved versus more evolved, right? Like, what could be some of the consequences of thinking about our energetic systems as less and more evolved, and then which areas we might want to work more on, or if we should be working on all of them? You see, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I hear your question. I would like to kind of remove the stigma of less or more evolved. I just think the frequencies are lower or higher. So level, not more or less. Because we are a unified field, you can't look at a specific energy system. You can't just look at the first chakra and do healing around the first chakra without it affecting all the other systems. So I don't think that, in looking at lower levels versus higher levels and deciding, well, which one do I want to work on? If you start paying attention in doing the healing work, which we all are, then you're affecting the entire system at once. Not only your system, but the system of the people that you live with, that you interact with, the people that you commune with. People, it's never ending.
Mary, could you say that it's like kind of like Russian dolls, the Russian nesting dolls, one inside the other. So they are layers, but as our consciousness rises or evolves, we activate the higher chakras, right? Wouldn't you say? So in that sense, maybe you could call it higher consciousness, but all of the chakra, it's just like in spiral dynamics. It's transcend and include, right? It's not transcend and leave the rest behind. It's
Right.
it's going into the higher chakras, activating them, but you still need the lower chakras also.
Absolutely. I totally agree with this. I had a teacher who, the image of the Vesuvius man. So the
Yes,
Vesuvius
yes.
man, she took a diagram. Pardon me?
Like Leonardo da Vinci's man.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So here's this Vesuvius man, and so she essentially showed one image of him, superimposed another image, and another image, and another image, and another image, and another image. So consciously, like I said, you can't, and you were alluding to it in that like Russian dolls, one being within the other, that as you work on somebody's first chakra, again, you're activating within the continuum of the nonlinear spectrum of time, but the continuum of time, you're healing various different aspects of yourself within various different dimensions of that chakra. So again, superimposed within the first chakra is going to be all the other chakra systems. Tell me that that's not cool.
That's cool.
Clearly, I'm very passionate about this stuff. I absolutely talking about the energy system. Let's dive in. We're going to be talking about some specifics. We're going to start breaking down some of the individual levels. All right, the first chakra. We talked about the location being like at the level of just above the pubic symphysis as it connects in the posterior with the coccyx. So we're looking in the lower pelvic bowl. In the innervation, the nerves that control this area of the body primarily come from the sacral plexus, the highway of nerves that come out of the sacrum, and a couple of the lumbar spine. But those nerves are what supply the butt, the thighs, the knees, ankles, feet. So all of those body parts are associated with the first chakra. And the central theme, if you will, or the central focus is all about survival. Okay, and it's connected with the earth element. It's the chakra that's closest to Mother Earth. Also, I want to add that even the nerve system also regulates the immune response, the immune system. You'll find that the immune system comes up when we talk about the fourth chakra as well. So we're talking about issues in the low back, so low back pain, sciatic issues, varicosities, hemorrhoids, constipation, sciatic issues. Immune system could be your autoimmune disorders. So your chronic fatigue, your fibromyalgia, your polio, and your AIDS also. So when we look at viruses. So when we think about the mental or the emotional component of the first chakra, and we keep the theme around survival and safety and security, it is not only your own personal physical safety, it's your safety within your community, it's your safety and belonging within your tribe. It's the essence of who you belong to and who are you here with. So those are some of the energetic connections, but talking about the mental or the emotional issues, they get triggered when family dynamics change. So imagine, being a young female and adding children into your world, your family dynamics change, or as we get older and we start losing family members or parents, the family positionings change. So those are all first chakra issues. So we already talked about the physical survival, abandonment by the group. That comes up in the neuroemotional response. And then obviously any anxiety or stress around fear concepts. And I bring up the first chakra in relation to safety, because the central nervous system in this area is primarily wired in a parasympathetic way. The sympathetic nervous system is primarily dominated within, below the neck and below the diaphragm. That's primarily all sympathetic dominance. So when there is any dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system, you then can store trauma, which dysregulates the central nervous system. It gets stored more readily and easily within the first chakra. That didn't come out as clear as I wanted it to come out, but does that make sense? Okay. Wow. So go ahead.
Oh, well, I guess two things. I'm trying to relate how the trauma would be stored if it's a parasympathetic one, because that seems the rest and digest, and that I would think the trauma would be stored in a sympathetic fight or flight place. Even though, like, it does make sense that it's first chakra, but I never quite put those two things together, and it doesn't quite make sense to me. And then briefly, did you say polio in the first chakra?
Yes.
Interesting, because I would have thought the lung, but I have seen them all walk different, so if you could expand on that too.
Yes. Polio was catastrophic, to the culture at large. And it affected the foundation and the security, just like, you guys, let's talk about Corona. We're going to talk about, the fear, the fear that has been instilled within the people globally about what the virus can do physically, how you can catch the virus, how the virus stays within the body, what happens if you're unable to go to work, what happens if you're not able to provide for your family, what happens if you can't communicate with the rest of your tribe. So the same parallels of polio versus Corona are very similar in that it is rocking everybody's first chakra. So panic and fear is overtaking neurologically. And Deb, I would have to say, in that you asked a really good question, in that trauma can be stored anywhere physically within the body. It can be stored cellularly in a specific region, or it can be stored within the entire system. And when I talk about the dysregulation of the peripheral nervous system, if something is creating a negative feedback cycle, parasympathetic or sympathetic, you can't break from that cycle in order to give your central nervous system a break, in order to be able to be more creative or to be in the healing mode. It's a negative feedback cycle that becomes challenging at best to get rid of, even though you're doing all of the techniques to try to balance out the central nervous system. That's a great question. Great question. Any other questions about the first chakra before we move on to the second? All right. Second chakra, still below the belly button, and it is going to be primarily associated with water. Also, the central focus will be desires, like your deepest desires, to connect with other people. And many times we choose to connect with other people through intercourse or through sex, so it becomes a sex center, if you will. And our desire to give and receive pleasure from another human being. In this second chakra, we're dealing with primarily the lumbar plexus. So we're dealing with the reproductive organs, the ovaries, the testes, the uterus, also dealing with the small and large intestines and the kidneys. The endocrine gland that's associated with this is the ovaries and the testes. And I think this may have been the missing link in that Deb, I forgot to mention that the endocrine system associated with the first chakra is the adrenal system, which is associated with fight or flight, which might make some more sense to you when we were talking about the sympathetic and parasympathetic. So apologies that I forgot to mention that. So on the second, again, we're talking about the reproductive hormones as they are controlled by the pituitary gland. When we look at the second chakra from the mental and the emotional areas, one of the things that I want to bring about is that let's talk about an individual, an intuitive person who is extremely clairsentient. That's where that energy, that's where that comes from. So here's the best example I can give when it comes to clairsentience in the second chakra. So I grew up in an environment in which my father was, forgive me, I hate the term functional alcoholic, but his energy was so strong within the house that I was constantly picking up energetically, clairsentiently, if my sisters were okay or how my mother was feeling in response to my father's energy. So out of survival, that's where I learned to develop a high level of clairsentience. And it just means the ability to protect or to give or receive energy from another human being. So women specifically, and I know you all understand being clairsentient and that you can walk into the room and you can read the vibe of a room without, having to do much. That is one area, that is one way of clairsentience. Or you can be sitting next to your best girlfriend, sitting across from her, sharing lunch, and she starts crying over her salad, and then all of a sudden you're overwhelmed by her emotions as well. That's another clairsentient kind of intuitive response that develops from the second chakra. When you think about creativity and desires, I think specifically, I know worldwide it happens, but within our culture, many times we're taught to kind of not honor our deepest desires or our creative outbursts. We're not encouraged to follow them. They get stifled. Unfortunately, either we stifle them or we allow others to stifle for us as well. So desires, the inability to have positive sexual relationships. These are some of the mental, emotional things that come up. Mood swings, depression, feeling overwhelmed, and the inability to express emotions within in a healthy way. Those are all second chakra emotional components. Any thoughts, comments, ideas, personal experiences that you all want to share? Nope. All right. Let's move on to the third chakra. The third chakra is located in the upper abdomen, underneath the ribs themselves, and they are associated with the element of fire. So it's all about vitality, power, autonomy, independence. That's what comes and stems out of the third chakra. The endocrine gland that associated with the third chakra is the pancreas. The pancreas is responsible for the blood sugar imbalances within our body. So if you think about how the pancreas is designed to help metabolize and to break down sugar, the third chakra can be looked at and viewed as a energy center that assimilates or metabolizes energy. The nerve plexus is part of the autonomic nerve system. The enteric nerve plexus is what controls this region of the body. So we're talking about the pancreas, the liver, the gallbladder, the small intestines. Again, you do tap into the adrenal system and the area that relates to the lower thoracic spine, that tightness, the lower trap area, right below the bra strap line. Some of the symptoms that you may be, the neuroemotional responses could show up as eating disorders. So your bulimia, your anorexia, those type of control eating disorders show up within the third chakra. You can see power struggle. You can see anger, low self-esteem, where the self-worthiness or confidence within oneself can become diminished. Or you just may find somebody just completely oversensitive to criticism. The third chakra, I think, is a really critical area to look at from a healing perspective, not only for ourselves personally, but also as we're working with other people. So it's how we give our power away, how we choose to give it away, or how we choose to metabolize it or to express it. And it's got a fire component, you know, the Vedic kind of the Pitta Vata type, more Pitta, that fire component. Anybody have personal experiences in healing? Yes.
I have a question, not personal experience. Well, anyway, is that the solar plexus chakra then? Would that be the solar plexus chakra? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody recently told me I need, like, 2 different people said, you need to work on your solar plexus chakra. So,
Did you resonate with any of the messages?
I haven't done anything with it yet.
Okay.
But obviously I need to do some work on stuff, you know. But anyway, and that just happened recently. So anyway, that's why I was excited to hear about this, because I need to learn about it, you know, chakra healing, things like that.
And you will let your exploration begin.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to invite all of you to do this ridiculous exercise with me. And it requires that you stand up and move away from your computer. And I will be so bold as to try to position my camera so that you guys can see and hear me, or you can watch how I do it first and hear the breathing that goes along with this. And this was presented
could I
to me.
suggest that you stop your screen share and then we can see you full size on our screens? Thank you.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. So this was taught to me by a tiny, tiny little petite lady when I was in private practice in Colorado Springs. And my treatment rooms were 7 by 11. And this tiny little lady, she moved so much energy in this tiny little room. And it stuck with me. And it's something that I teach frequently. They're called happiness swings. And so essentially all we're going to do is we're going to stand with our feet equally distanced apart, our weight equally distributed. And the first move is to take a deep breath in, and you inhale and you bring your arms up to shoulder height. Okay. And then what ends up happening is that you drop your arms down to your side. You don't let your breath out, but you take another deep inhalation in as you raise your arms out to your side. You let your arms come all the way back down, and then you take another deep breath in on top of the 2 you already have, and raise your hands all the way on up above your head. And then as you exhale, you bend at the waist and you allow all the energy to flow and push back down to the earth. And so what happens, and it looks like this when you get to going. So it goes. Now, I'm not going to be the only one that does this. So shall we start together? Yep. Two more. Whew. Okay.
Very energizing.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I now understand a little bit more about what happens with the arm movements. That the first position allows the air to go into the lower lobes of the lungs, and then it goes into the middle, and then as your arms go all the way on up, it gets all the way up to the apices of your lungs, and as you exhale, it forces and contracts the air out of the lungs as you exhale. So, and this is a perfect exercise to move into because the lungs are associated with the 4th chakra. Okay. So I will screen share. Raise your hand if you like the exercise. I think it's a good one. I look ridiculous doing it, but who cares? Just as long as you guys enjoy it. All right. So screen share here. Third chakra. Moving on to the 4th. The 4th chakra is the only chakra that has its own little toric field. So it is considered to be a transitional area from the lower levels of consciousness as it bridges into the higher levels of consciousness. So it is associated with air. And it's about compassion, love for yourself, and love for other people. So it's, excuse me, it relates to the heart center, has its own nerve supply going into the heart itself. And the plexus is rather complicated. The innervation of, there's not just one plexus that supplies all of the heart, the neurological information, but it is part of the autonomic system. It is something that regulates on its own. It's not something that you consciously have to regulate. So that's the nerve, associated nerve plexus. The heart has been measured to be the one organ in the body that has the highest electromagnetic current. And so that's important to remember when you're talking and thinking about polarity as the toric field moves front to back and surrounding out into the quantum field. So when I talk about the energy or the polarity of what surrounds us, hopefully by now you're understanding that that's the same polarity that goes into your the organs of your body, that goes into the cells of your body, and it is the same polarity and energy that goes into the interstitial lining between the cells. So there is no difference internally at that level. There's it's the same energetic electromagnetic frequency. The body parts that are associated with the fourth chakra clearly are the lungs, the heart, the respiratory system, and the thymus gland. So this is why you see immunity is also being a physiological byproduct of this chakra as well. The thymus gland is essentially located below the sternum or in the sternum area, and it is in active development until we are about the age of 18, and it does produce T cells, which are important for our immune response. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the tapping techniques of stimulating the thymus and that being highly effective. That is just a side note. So that's the endocrine gland is the thymus as it relates to the fourth chakra. So issues related to the heart. So your congestive heart failures, your arrhythmia, your lung tissues, lung cancer, breast cancers, asthma, breast pathologies, whether they be your fibrocystic breast disease or issues related, impartially related to your shoulders. The shoulders also get involved from the neurological supply of the fifth chakra, but it also shows the energy showing up in the fourth chakra as well. So when you have the inability to express love, your heart chakra from a neurological standpoint shows up emotionally with sadness, also with feelings of loss, of grief. Again, you'll see anger come up. You'll see self-centeredness, the essence of being separated from everything else, or that isolation. So when the chakra is not within, when it's not activated, those are some of the emotions that the person will start to exhibit. Forgiveness is a big item or a big issue, emotional response, or the lack of forgiveness there can show up within the activation within this heart-based compassion center. Something I was thinking about when we just took our 5-minute break is, are there any yoga practitioners in this group? Do you practice yoga? Okay. So something that I could be sharing with you in addition to the information that I'm sharing with you tonight is some of the visual cues that you get in yoga are centered around bandhas. So you've heard the term mula bandhas, you heard, pull your shoulder blades down and back, squeeze your shoulders together. Those are energy locks that the Hindus believe is going to activate the nadis, or the energy, the contraction around the individual chakras. So you'll hear the yoga practitioners talking about how the muscle contraction, whether you go into flexion or extension within a body region, will activate a specific chakra and the surrounding nadi system. So when you're standing in your mountain pose or your Tadasana, and it suggests that you roll your shoulder blades down and back and squeeze your shoulder blades, and they're talking about the front side of the body being in expansion and the back side of the body being in contraction. And that in itself is a bandha. It is an energy lock. Just like the Mula Bandha is a root lock. So for those of you that practice yoga, you'll look at some of these cues a little bit differently in the future. Do any of you guys have any personal stories that you would like to share about the heart chakra itself?
Just
No.
to
Okay.
mention gratitude also is a very important, to me, it's a very important aspect of the heart chakra. When the heart is opened, we feel tremendous gratitude.
I completely agree, and thank you for reminding me of that. Yes, I completely agree with the heart-centered feeling of gratitude. Someone can say that they are, they're thankful for, or they express gratitude towards, but unless they are embodying that emotional feeling of what that creates within the heart expansion, then sometimes people miss that embodiment component when it comes to gratitude. But I do agree that if done properly, gratitude goes a long ways.
Yeah.
In order to open up my heart chakra, I do work with horses, not riding them, but I do energetic work because horses can tell if your heart is open. And so because they have such big hearts and their energy field is big. So periodically I work with somebody who works with horses that I do that, and I find it very helpful.
Lovely.
That's beautiful.
Lovely.
Could I ask, how do they know that the horse is, how does the horse know that the heart is open, or what feedback what does that look like?
Oh, that's a great question. It's really powerful. If you put in a ring with the horse, outside, and if, say I'm working with the horse, if I'm in my heart space, that horse will come up to me and even kiss me, or, but if I'm not in my heart place, the horse will be somewhere in the corral just eating grass and ignoring me, or purposely turning its back on me. The horses, they are amazing to do this work. I've had a horse with some work I did with a lady that used to be in Niwot. She's moved now down to Elizabeth, but her horse came up to me. He was called, what was he called? Not Major. Anyway, he bowed down to me, and she said, he is showing his crown chakra to you, and he knows you're a healer, and he's honoring you. She said he doesn't normally do that. These horses really, they are incredible animals to work with. And this isn't about training horses or riding horses. It's doing this kind of work, but with horses. Yeah, they're amazing.
Phenomenal.
Oh, Shadow, that's it.
That's so cool.
He was called Shadow. Yeah, he was called Shadow, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, but it's powerful because you can't fake it. The horses,
Yeah.
they know.
Animals know.
Yeah, but the horses particularly, because they have this huge energy field around their heart. I mean, it's huge. I think we're 6 foot out and they're like 30 feet out, how far our energy goes. Yeah.
I'd like to comment on that. We do Tai Chi in a horse barn with horses. And it's amazing how they know what's going on, and they come right over. They don't bother anything. They just come over and watch as you do the Tai Chi.
Yeah. Well, one of the retreats I did a few years ago, it was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On the Sunday, the woman who owns the horses said she put, one of those parachute things that you all hold on to in a circle, she put it down in the corral, and this horse came in, and she said to a group of 5 or 6 of us, your job is to get that horse onto that parachute, and you can decide how you're going to do it, but you cannot speak to the horse, you cannot hold the horse or anything. And we knew energetically that if we could get grounded in our lower chakras, we could contact the horse. So the group of us decided that we weren't even going to go in the corral with the horse. We would just send our energy to the horse. And horses don't like new things. And that horse moved across the corral and put his front legs on the parachute. And then she said to us, he has to get all 4 legs on. So we sent our energy, and he put all 4 legs on that parachute on the ground, because we operated our chakras together as a team. She said, I've never seen that before. Powerful work.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah, thank you. It's power. If we can do that with a horse, what can we do out in the world if we do our work?
There's a lot of
Huge stuff.
There's a lot of research being done right now on the consciousness of the heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At the Heart Math Institute and other places.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
The Heart Math does some phenomenal research.
Yeah. I'm a heart math facilitator. So.
Are you?
Oh, very good.
Yeah. So.
Very good. I have a humbling story does not compare to what Michelle just talked about. But just last night, so in Portland, all of the yoga studios have been shut down. So it's only been a week since I've been back on the mat. And last night in class, there was a mantra. The lady that was leading the class led us through a mantra. And while we were simultaneously expanding through the front side of our body and opening up the chest. And the mantra was, I choose hope. And hope was to be expressed in a fully expanded, the arms were in full extension, and the whole heart was in full expansion as well. So I made it through the class. That wasn't the issue, but the issue began probably about 2 or 3 hours after the class. I'm like, God bless, why am I having all of this pain within my chest? And realizing, that for every ounce of, for the expansion came the contraction afterwards. And I was so humbled by the palpable kinesthetic sensation that I was having. And I was quite humbled,
Well, I think that when the heart chakra expands, especially for the, like when you're expanding it, wider than it's ever been, you do feel pain. The first time it happened to me, I thought I was having indigestion. And it kept getting more and more intense. And I didn't know what was going on. I was trying to ignore it. I was talking to my spiritual teacher. This was many years ago. And I was trying to ignore it and continue what I was trying to tell him, and it wasn't working because I couldn't even stay focused. It was so intense, and I was sure it was some kind of indigestion. And he said, "Stop! Don't you feel what's going on? Your heart center, your heart is talking to me. Your heart is open." And I was shocked. That's my heart opening.
Right.
Yeah, it was intense.
Mm-hmm.
The sensation, it was very uncomfortable, very, I guess painful, I could say.
Yeah, I concur. Last night I was uncomfortable, sincerely, and I'm typically not uncomfortable in my body, but I was like, I am uncomfortable. I'm in pain. Yeah. You know, it's interesting that, Gloria, thank you for saying that, because every individual has a different capacity for, just in saying the word compassion, open your heart chakra to compassion, allows everybody. So like, you remember the visual of the salad steamer? So many times I talk about the aperture when guiding clients and patients. It's like, just open the aperture maybe 40% and see how you feel. And 40% for some people is like, oh God, I'm so vulnerable, I'm so exposed, I can't go there. And then there are other people that can hold capacity of being open at 80% and walk around in the normal world with an 80% open heart chakra. I'm somewhere in the middle.
Well, we used to do Kundalini yoga, and my teacher would say, the heart is the most important chakra to open. That's why we're here on this planet. This is our lesson to love, right? And he said, so when you do your Kundalini exercise and you get to the heart chakra, you have to try to open it big enough to fit another you. Thought, well, that's a challenge.
That's a very wise statement. I love it. Anybody else? All right, are we ready to look at the fifth chakra? Probably my most challenging chakra. Okay, the fifth chakra. As I try to clear my voice. The fifth chakra, we talked about the location being centered within the cervical spine, and it is all about expressing your creativity and your communication. The element is sound, so something that you can connect in there. It is the cervical nerve plexus, the nerves that come out of the neck are what penetrate and also help control the nerve plexus going into the throat chakra. Anatomically speaking, you're looking at the endocrine gland associated with this is the thyroid gland. And the thyroid gland is about metabolism, your metabolic rate. So viscerally, you have all the tiny muscles that are associated with the vocal cords, the larynx, the thyroid, the parathyroid, as it connects into the ears, and as it connects into the teeth, the gums, and the energy that flows down out from the shoulders, elbows, arms, and wrists, and expansion through the hand chakras. So earlier I mentioned when we were talking about the heart space, we talk about the shoulders. If you are in the healing arts and you are looking to open and expand to pick up more information through the psychometry of your hands, then you're going to want to expand through both the throat and through the heart to allow the energy to flow down and out through the hands with ease. So from an emotional standpoint, it is being understood, being able to speak clearly, whether it be externally with other people or the self-talk that you have within yourself. There is literature that talks about the backside of the fifth chakra and its relation to like a professional will center and your ability to be able to manifest as well. So those are the primary components of the fifth chakra. And I'll share that that has been a chakra that has, for being hearing impaired, number one, but also having a autoimmune, a Hashimoto's for my thyroid, that has been coupled with professionally not being able to speak my truth, created a lot of physical trauma, to the point that there was a time in my professional career that literally I was so disconnected physically that I just broke out in pustules all along the front of the neck. And you could see literally the inflammation that was festering underneath that chakra system. Incredibly humbling. And when I look back on it, intellectually, I knew all of this, but I wasn't willing to look at the spiritual component behind it. So that's when I decided to make some changes. Anybody else have any good stories about the fifth chakra?
I was just reading this morning in Greg Braden's Wisdom Codes, and he talks about the throat chakra as being a bridge, acting as a bridge between the heart and the brain. And that was why that it was so important that mantras, how the Tibetans used the mantras out loud, and the vibrations of that was just using the throat as the bridge for those emotions.
Thank you. And your first name is Bab, right?
Pardon me?
Is that right?
What?
What's your first name?
Shirley? Shirley.
Shirley, I'm sorry. Shirley, thank you. Thank you so much for bringing that up. The importance of vocalizing sound from the throat is incredibly powerful. And I agree with what Greg says. If you look at the human body, it's a bottleneck. It's a bottleneck of energy. So it's narrow. It's the narrowest part of our primary energetic system within the vertical current. And when we talk about the bandhas in constricting that area, we talk about ujjayi breathing in yoga. So where you literally like close off the passage of the air and you get this kind of raspy movement up and down the vertical power current. And there's a reason that we want to have that constriction, because it kind of explodes in either direction. It explodes up into the pineal and it explodes down into the heart. When it comes to the physical body, I guess I just don't want to not mention that any numbness, any abnormal sensation, tingling that happens in the arm are associated with the throat chakra as well. So your carpal tunnel, your golfer's elbows, tennis elbows, your restricted shoulders.
I had a question. Just could you speak more about the backside coming in with professional will? I thought that was an interesting comment. I haven't heard before.
Yeah. Barbara Brennan talks about it a lot, and Sue Morter does as well, talking about the backside of the neck, and talking about professional will center and being able to vocally command your vocation or your profession. And the backside, interestingly enough, was about manifestation, being able to vocalize what it is that you want to attract into your world, that law of attraction. I've seen it in several different literatures. I also know energetically when it comes to the direct voice and the meridian system within the acupuncture, there are two channels that run from the top of the seventh and they go straight down the back of the cranium. into the base of the occiput, and they converge and they come into an energy center right behind the fifth cervical vertebra. And they, in Oriental medicine, say that this is related to your direct voice. So if there's any constriction back within the meridian or constriction, within the chakra system, it affects your ability to convey your vocal message, and sometimes can impede upon your written message as well. Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sixth chakra. I think this might also be one of my favorites because we get to start looking at the third eye. We're looking at the element of light. We think about the ocular vision, the rods and the cones that are associated with the actual ability to be able to see as it penetrates into the pineal. The pineal gland is the associated endocrine gland, and that is responsible for regulating melatonin, being able to distinguish light versus dark. And they can actually dissect the pineal gland. And you guys, the gland itself is maybe the size of my fingernail. And it is about 6 millimeters in height. And it looks like a pine cone, a baby pine cone. And it sits in the posterior or the back side of the third ventricle of the brain. And so if you were to take your tongue and roll it on the roof of your mouth, you'll feel the hard palate, which essentially is your sphenoid bone of your cranium. But then if you roll it back far enough, you get to this soft spot. And that soft spot is essentially in midline right underneath the pineal gland. And the cool thing about this is that the pineal gland and the third ventricle are what are responsible for stimulating the cerebral spinal fluid, the lubrication, the aqueous solution that encases our entire brain, and it encases our entire spinal column as it travels down. And it provides information and it provides nutrients to our nerves. And if you think about the information that we receive from the electric or the electromagnetic field, not only through the chakra system, but surrounding us and intracellularly, it has access to all of this information, if you will, from the cerebral spinal fluid. The sixth chakra is about clarity of being able to see. And some say clairvoyance, but clairvoyance takes on, from an intuitive meaning, it takes on a different meaning for every person. I have some colleagues that are incredibly clairvoyant and can see images, can see pictures, can see storylines, can see details visually. But my clairvoyance works a little bit different. It doesn't work within that realm. So it is the area in which when people want to tap into psychic abilities, that's when they start to expand through the sixth chakra. So again, the associated endocrine gland is the pineal. The body part is all about the brain and the central nervous system, including the hypothalamus and the thalamus. And your ability to be able to intellectualize, like your analyzer within your brain, balancing out the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, the logical versus the spatial. Those are all sixth chakra functions. So if there's going to be imbalances in that area, you may see somebody that is over reliant on analytical information or logic. Like they get like those looping thoughts that they can't let go of. They're unable to think expansively or creatively, if you will. sometimes they are unable to see truth when they see it. It doesn't register as to what they're seeing is actually the truth. Many times they may feel inadequate or unable to really process information that they learn experientially. I love the Sixth Chakra. I'm in love with the pineal because I think about the position of the pineal gland as it relates to information coming in front to back. It is also receiving information coming in from the seventh. And as we look through the current coming up the central canal, because it is a midline structure, it gets bombarded in all four, from a 360 perspective. And I think about, the science that is out there that Greg Braden was talking about last night, the neurons or the neural activity that is what regulates consciousness. I just know that it's going to be involving that third ventricle of the brain and the nerves that sit on the base of the brain as well. Such a magnificent area within the body. Does anybody have any questions about the Sixth Chakra? Any thoughts or comments about clairvoyance in general?
Mary, isn't the fifth chakra, the sixth chakra also, doesn't it also correspond to the pituitary?
More so the pituitary, depends on what literature you read, but the pituitary is more intimately connected with the
seventh.
With the seventh.
Mm. Yeah, I've read the opposite. Like I've read that the pineal was connected to the seventh, and the pituitary to the sixth. But I've read both.
I have too.
So
I have too.
Whether they both are connected to both.
I would say that there's a high probability. When I intuit, and what I know about the pituitary gland being the master regulating gland for all of the endocrine systems, that kind of gives me kind of like that hierarchy of seventh versus sixth. Now, Gloria, am I going to say I'm right, you're wrong? Oh, heck no. I'm going to say we're both right in that, I don't think that anybody really truly knows, but the truth is what you said, and that in this region, in dealing with the higher levels of consciousness, we are stimulating the pituitary and we are stimulating the pineal simultaneously. That's the truth. But I'm not going to argue one way or another, but I see both.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing? Anybody have any other thoughts or comments? All right. I thought you guys would be more chatty. All right, the seventh chakra. So it's the highest of all vibrations. Even as I put my hands up here, I'm reminding of just what a beautifully sensitive area this is for us. And if you think about the little babies as they come in and as they go through the spiritual embodiment, and as the spirit enters into the body, and their soft little fontanelles, how the cranium is not fused together, and just how beautifully soft and vulnerable that spot is on babies. That level of respect that we have, I think should be carried through life when we think about the seventh chakra. This is what connects us to all that is. Everything from divine knowing, spiritual knowing, acquiring information, the path to seeing the larger picture within life. What's our purpose? Why are we here? That information, as we go through the spiritual embodiment and our spirit transfers and comes through into the seventh, it is, again, the endocrine systems associated with the seventh would be the pituitary and the pineal. The pituitary is considered to regulate all the other endocrine systems. There's a front side of the pituitary and there's a posterior aspect of the pituitary as well. And they watch over everything from the pineal to the thyroid, to the thymus, to the pancreas, to the adrenals, to the ovaries and the intestines. So all the systems that we've been talking about are ultimately connected in through this master gland. It is a unified, it's all unified. There's no separateness. There's no duality. There is, I just want to say it's unified. When you can connect through the seventh chakra and opening the seventh chakra through meditation and through prayer and also intention. So if you feel as though you are in a situation like we were just listening to about the horse situation where you want to ground yourself, you may want to open up the lower chakras and dial down the seventh so that your spirit is more embodied. So those are reasons when you would want to calibrate or to close down that seventh chakra. If you find that you're spacey or you're just too far out of your body or you just feel disconnected, then set the intention to allow the spirit to come back in and then allow the aperture to close down. I think many times people are walking around. I mean, we have the desire to connect with all that is, but sometimes it creates an over expressed seventh chakra and can create like this spiritual bypass, if you will, where somebody just doesn't want to be physically present. When you're dealing with that chakra and it is not activated to its fullest, you may find that there are trust issues and trusting in the higher powers and allowing what is to be. And the inability they want to control more, they don't want to relax into allowing that what is naturally to occur. And then just a sense of not wanting to be physically present, not wanting to stay within the body. That's the seventh chakra. I used to love headstands in yoga, not so much anymore. But I still do love rolling my cranium. Like, you know, if I go from child's pose and the pressure's on the sixth, I like to roll my head forward so that the chakra does make contact with the mat. I just don't prefer to put that much pressure on the cranium anymore. It feels too invasive. Any questions about the seventh? Okay. So hopefully I've answered your questions as we have progressed through sharing the information this evening. In the event that you wake up tomorrow and you have a burning question, please know that you can always contact me and I will be available for you. I will send an information through Gloria that she'll have my contact information as well. So you will have access to that. Any last minute questions before we go our separate directions?
I want to mention your website. Your website.
Yes, I have all that information here on the next slide. Thank you for reminding me, Gloria. I would have forgotten. Again, you can always reach me directly on my email. And on the website, you will find some of the cool things that I'm putting together, upcoming lectures, upcoming healing spaces, things of that nature, events if you want to stay connected. I'm also very active on Facebook and Instagram and do educational videos on a weekly basis just to keep information and thoughts and ideas moving. So once again, I cannot express to you how much joy I have in being able to share this information with other people, with other like-minded people that really value and appreciate the complexity, but yet the simplicity of how much contribution that we have to our evolution. So, Gloria, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mary. It's been a very interesting and enjoyable lecture. You're so clear in your presentation, and I really enjoyed it. I think I speak for all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending.
Very
I love
interesting.
your I love your props. They're great.
Me too.
Very interesting. Yeah, great.
Yes.
What you can find in your kitchen, right?
Right, right. And I just want to say too, I think that it just seems so important to me. I mean, I've worked with the chakras for years, but I'm still amazed at how important it is to validate them, as you know, like not everybody sees them or sees them in the same way, which has been obvious, you know, and the meanings and connections, I think up here particularly, are most variable with people, but it's just nice and refreshing to have it. I think the importance of them in growing, not just in, you know, clearing our chakras, but in growing as people seems really nice. So I'm glad to participate in this and, you know, hear your side. So thank you. Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. Thank you all.
Have a great night,
Thank
everyone.
you so much, Mary.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Much love.